so in this video, I'll be showing you how to do the Dark Ages culture shock. So this comes pretty early on in the unit after we're done talking about the fall of Rome, just to get students to understand just how dramatic the fall of Rome was and the effects that it had on medieval times, essentially. So the first thing that the students do is this shock called necessities. So basically, I ask the students to imagine that there was a zombie apocalypse. And there's different tons of clips on YouTube about this, right, that you can use. And basically the idea is imagining the scenario where there's a zombie apocalypse, and I ask the students to list the 5 things that they would need in order to survive a zombie apocalypse, right? So they mentioned things like weapons, they mentioned things like food, water, shelter, super basic things, right? And that's what I tell them. It's a big metaphor, right? That the fall of Rome was like a zombie apocalypse. That Rome had existed for about 1,000 years, and now suddenly it was gone. And all the things that Rome provided went away as well. No more army, no more protection. That's why you need weapons. No more aqueducts, no more Roman roads, no more bathrooms, right? All these things were now gone with the fall of Rome. And the people that were left over from the Roman Empire, right, in medieval Europe, they were just caring about the basic necessities. No one cared about art. No one cared about building coliseums or roads. There was no government strong or unified enough in order to provide these things or rich enough. So they really understand just how dramatic the fall of Rome was and all that was lost, and how people just focused on the very, very basic essentials they needed, just as one would in a zombie apocalypse, right? So continuing on with that theme, shock number 2 is basically, again, you follow on with the theme of a zombie apocalypse, and now you tell them to create some sort of shelter for themselves, right? So you can do this in different ways. So I used to use game cards, right? So just like little cards, give them a couple cards, and they had to build some sort of house. During distance learning, I had them just use whatever they had in their house in order to build a little shelter, some sort of little fort, right? So it's kind of fun. I have Legos this year, so just something that they can use in order to quickly build some sort of structure. It doesn't have to be perfect, and that's kind of the point, right? That during the Roman Empire, you had these huge apartments, right? Nice marble buildings and such, very, very sophisticated for the time architecture. And now during medieval times, there are literally people building houses out of whatever they can find, right? There's even clips from Worst Jobs in History, medieval worst jobs in history. That's really good. That shows how they would build houses out of cow manure and straw, right? So it's like mud, cow manure, straw, boom, you got a house. And I show them a clip of that actually as well, to get them to understand that, again, it was just about surviving. No more beautiful big Roman buildings, and we got little poop huts instead, right? So they really get the sense of like, yeah, it was just all about survival, right? All right. So shock number 3 is pretty cool. So essentially what I talk about is how we have no more Roman emperor. We have a divided government now. And it's basically just a fun little thing, fun little questions that the students have to answer about themselves, right? If they themselves were the leader, and they answer different questions about what they would do. So for example, this first one says, how would you create an army? They have different options. A, all the adults, the male adults need to be a part of the army. B is one male from each family, or C, only volunteers. So they just answer different little questions about preferences, like if they were the leader of a medieval kingdom, just to see what kind of leader they would be. So it's kind of fun. At the end, the students figure out what kind of leader they would be, right? So different personality based on the answers that they that they gave, right? So for example, if you mostly chose A, you're more of a military dictator, and it just has some traits about what kind of leader you would be based off of your answers. B is more of a businessman, and C, right, more like a hippie, right, and not too concerned with war and such, just taking care of the people, and so on. So just a fun little thing that the students do. Shock number 4, I show some just a little quick one. So all these culture shocks activities, right, they just have a mini series of little smaller activities, right? It's basically all it is. So for this one, I just show, which I highly recommend, which is called Worst Jobs in History. So parts of this documentary that talks about medicine and leeches and all that good stuff, right? Then if we have time, I usually don't have time for the rest of these, but basically for this one, just show them the different types of pottage and talk about what pottage was, and how horrible it was, how they would use human poop in order to grow their food and such, and that's why they had to boil their food. So just a little fun thing to get students to see what medieval food was like, right? So then shock number 6, which I don't ever really get into, they just basically have to copy. We talk about how monks are the ones that would write the books, right? Everything was done by hand. So they just copy this little paragraph here by hand as nice of writing as they can, right? Just like a monk would. Um, then 4/4, this sort of activity where you show them one part of this painting here, and they have to try to figure out what the rest of the painting will be about, right? And so same thing. And then for the second one, the third one, and the fourth one, what do you think the whole painting's showing? And then together, and just talk about how our society today is so they don't interact with food nowadays, right? In terms of like the growing of food and the killing of the animals that then we eat, right? We get, I don't know, a hot dog, and it's like you just get in a little package, you go to the store, right? But how in this time period, right? It's like, no, you had to actually go to the butcher, and they'd go and kill the animal and then cut the little pieces and you go and take them, just to gross them out a little bit. And talk about just hygiene itself, right? How there was no hygiene, no refrigerators, none of that. But yeah, that's pretty much the different activities that we do. Again, I recommend you doing this very early on in your medieval times unit. All right, well, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.